Good Boy is a 2025 American film written and produced by Ben Leonberg with Alex Cannon as his co-writer. It stars Shane Jensen, Arielle Friedman, movie horror legend Larry Fessenden, and of course Indy the dog in the lead role. The plot follows Indy moving out to a rural family home so that his human Todd can try and deal with his health issues, and something is just not right in this house. All right, guys, here we are with another of my more anticipated films this year. I mean, you know how I feel about dogs, right? If you don't, I mean, you probably will soon. And this one's been getting a lot of talk, too. And this is actually Ben Leonberg's feature-length debut. He actually teaches filmmaking classes. That's something that I learned about him. So he is a guy that knows what he's doing, even though he doesn't have a lot of, collective work under his belt, I guess you could say. Credits to his name and all that. So I'm sure you know by now, but this is essentially a haunted house story through the eyes of a dog. Which, by the way, has that ever been done before? I'm trying to think of any movie I've seen that's at all like this. And the way that this is done, this could be seen as gimmicky. And I guess you could say that it is, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Sometimes gimmicks are good. There's good and bad gimmicks, I guess. I kind of attribute it to the old, legend about how dogs are more perceptive to ghosts and spirits and stuff like that. So this, I feel like that is kind of the origin of what we have here. And as a dog guy, I absolutely choose to believe that they can. So the beginning shows, Todd and Indy relocating to their new house, and Todd's sister she does kind of blow up his phone quite a bit. She calls him frequently, which annoys him, but, she worries about him because that's what sisters do. He's sick. She also believes that their grandfather's house may be haunted, and there isn't a lot to do in this old house or anywhere around it. But Todd's grandfather, played by Larry Fessenden, by the way, which was awesome, he left behind like dozens and dozens of VHS tapes, and actually you only see him on these tapes. He's on a lot of these tapes, and he also had a dog named Bandit. So just like Todd, they were kind of similar, I guess. And Bandit was actually never seen after his owner was found dead by a neighbor. So Todd kind of, watches through these VHS tapes, trying to maybe piece together what possibly could have happened to his grandfather, because no one really knows at all. And this isn't anything new or super unique, people finding, VHS tapes of family or friends or even just total strangers trying to piece together a story. And I think actually a little bit more time could have been spent doing that, because that was, I don't want to say the coolest part about this movie, but it was a really cool aspect, and I think they should have elaborated on that just a little more. So anyways, basically, as soon as, Todd and Indy get to their new house, Indy feels something. Maybe a presence of some sort. Todd, being sick and preoccupied, kind of notices Indy acting strange, but chalks it up to the new house, like anyone would. Any dog owner knows dogs they like consistency. They don't like to move. They really don't. So as Todd gets sicker, more apparitions start showing up, as Indy tries to protect his human, because Indy is the best boy. So I had been endlessly curious about this film ever since I first even heard about it, and I just couldn't wait to see it. And I'll admit, I had been really nervous the whole time because I didn't know if Indy would die or get hurt in the movie or whatever. Probably the coolest detail, though, about this film is the fact that Indy is actually director Ben Leonberg's dog, which is something that I didn't know until after I watched Good Boy. And I actually kind of enjoyed not knowing that until after I watched it. It just added this extra, it was like a bonus for me. And the entire movie was shot inside his own house over 3 years. They would spend anywhere from 1 to 3 hours per day. And I love how he says that Indy literally has no idea he was ever in a movie, which is so cool. It literally is. It was all filmmaking tricks and stuff like that, not to take away from Indy's performance. And I mean, you've probably heard this already 100 times. Maybe it's your own opinion too, and I'm going to say it also. Indy did a really good job here, even if it was due to Ben Leonberg's guidance, it is still an impressive, and as much as he has to do here, and as much as he is the focal point of the entire movie, he's really good. I did like how the story unfolded, even if I felt like, I was left with unanswered questions, probably more than the ones that were answered. And the story could be a little bit more cohesive. I'm typically, okay with all that if the film makes up for it in other ways. I say this all the time. And the story itself, though, it's not exactly the most interesting story on paper. You know what I mean? Although I will give it credit for adding some of its own touches, for sure. Not even including, the dog aspect. And I did thoroughly enjoy hanging out with Indy the whole time, and I never got tired of him, to be honest. And I absolutely loved how you either never or rarely see the faces of the other two main characters, Todd and Vera. You could probably have like different interpretations for that. I don't know what yours might be, but I took it as that Indy is the lead here, and the other characters are just far less important. They want you to focus on Indy. It's not a particularly scary watch, but it is tense, especially if you love dogs, and also, pretty touching when you realize, that Indy's only goal here really is to stay with Todd and keep him safe. We don't deserve dogs, man. I've said that 100 times. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, actually. I've been saying that, for most of my life, really. So for how simple this film is, and on small scale and all that, it is an impressive piece of filmmaking, really. And it also looks really good. I'm sure the budget here was incredibly small. Small crew. Ben Leonberg, he kept it real tight also at like an hour and 14 minutes or something, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. He knew, I think, it needed to be that way. So I'm giving Good Boy a 6.5 out of 10. It's obviously a labor of love, and I appreciate it so much for that. I think it's so cool that Ben immortalized Indy on film, so people will essentially remember him forever. That's awesome. There's enough cool stuff here to make up for the semi-bland story, but hey, it's an original story and concept, and that's always going to be good enough for me. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.